I used the secret new AR in Modern Warfare 3, and I snuck into the new maps Meat, Grease, Rio, and I even played Gunfight. Here's how. So a few weeks ago, I was scrolling through my email when I got a notification from Activision, asking if I'd be down to go to visit Sledgehammer offices and test play the new Season 1 update, which includes the new maps and modes from earlier, as well as ranked play, a snaking nerf, an SMG buff, and a brand new AR, which is what y'all are seeing right here, the RAM-7. And this gun made many of your favorite streamers legitimately rage after I dropped an EMP and a Swarm, which are the two new kill streaks we'll talk about later. And before I talk about that, let's talk about the Season 1 update. So here are my top 5 changes I'm excited to share with y'all coming to Season 1. And before those, yes, I got sick on the plane ride back home. And yes, I need to go outside more. So on this channel, ranked play is my primary focus. So number 5 is, of course, ranked play, which drops mid-season. We don't know exactly when, but our best guess is mid-January. Call of Duty's tweeted out the new ranked play operators, which I'll show on screen right here. And the next couple of points we're going to be talking about are directly related to ranked play, as well as Modern Warfare 3 as a whole. But before we talk about snaking, we need to talk about these new maps that y'all are seeing on screen right here. So I absolutely love Meat. This is my first time posting Meat on my YouTube channel. So if y'all enjoy Meat, be sure to like and subscribe for more Meat. But the Meat I'm showing you is way too small, so there probably won't be any in ranked play. However, the two other maps, Grease and Rio, seemed very promising for 6v6. And one of the things the developers talked about while we were in the studios was about how it's much easier to control the spawn system in the new maps rather than the older ones. Something about the maps being ported over in their style from Modern Warfare 2 has the spawns more stuck and more predetermined rather than them being able to build the maps based on a proper spawn system, especially for modes like hardpoint and control that we'll be playing in ranked, which has me very hopeful. The fact that they even addressed the spawn system and knew that it wasn't ideal for hardpoint, of course, makes me hopeful that we might see some new 6v6 maps in the rotation for ranked play and competitive. Also, the fact that we're already seeing 3 new 6v6 maps is a huge plus, given that the game just came out a month ago. So I have my fingers crossed that pros will be able to test out these new maps and really give them a chance for competitive. I'll throw some Grease on screen right here. The one thing that makes me a little bit iffy is all the water routes, but if we played Hydro for an entire year, it's definitely possible. Rio is the one that seems a lot more likely to me in terms of 6v6 hardpoint or 4v4 hardpoint, so we'll see what that looks like in the future. Before we get into update number 4, what I need to talk about is that Call of Duty finally addressed skill-based matchmaking. The exact quote is that they know there is a lot of interest in the matchmaking experience, especially around how skill contributes to how lobbies and matches are put together. They mentioned that matchmaking combines latency, search time, and skill, along with many other factors to find the best match experience. Essentially what they've done, they say they haven't spent the time to pull together all of our work to share, so they're looking to do that in the coming weeks after Season 1 launches. In my opinion, I feel like it's great that they're addressing it. However, there's definitely a possibility that they address skill-based matchmaking, say how it works for them, and then nothing has changed. So in terms of the Call of Duty community as a whole, I'm not sure how much of a W that will be. From a public match standpoint, of course, I hope that they tone it down a little bit, but I definitely see the relevance of skill-based matchmaking when it comes to protecting newer players from the sweats. Update number 4 that I'm most excited about with the Season 1 changes is actually a snaking patch. One thing that they mentioned to us is that they want to fix snaking as an exploit or a means of continuously looking over cover, but they don't want to make you feel like you're in mud. What that looks like in the recent update, as I'll show on screen right here, is the first 2 pumps of your snake are just like they would be normally. However, on about the 3rd to 4th one, you'll see that I stay on the ground a little bit longer than I'm used to, and the inputs are a little bit weird getting back into the form of snaking. In my opinion, I feel like it's a good start in the right direction, but when I was using this in-game at Sledgehammer Studios, I didn't really notice too much of a difference in snaking. If I had to choose one side of the spectrum, I guess I would rather feel more fluid in my movement than feel like I'm stuck in mud, but I hope they come back to this and address snaking as an exploit a little bit more. It won't be as much of a problem since the pros already GA'd it, but when we're talking competitive, there's no way to properly enforce a snake anyways, so it's very possible people could just keep snaking and get away with it. But like I said, long story short, it's a good change, a good step in the right direction, but I have a feeling in terms of the statistics on Sledgehammer's end, they will probably see the same amount of snaking that they saw before, with the same amount of benefit as there was before. Update number 3 that I'm super excited about for Season 1 is the SMG buff and the AR nerf. One of the questions that I asked the developers when they brought this up is how exactly would they tackle a buff to the SMGs and a nerf to the ARs? Because in my opinion, as much as it pains me to say this, the SMGs are still strong. It's just the maps that benefit the ARs. So if they're adding a bunch of 6v6 maps, Meat, for example, that is a lot smaller in close quarters. If they buff the SMGs and nerf the ARs, it's super possible that on the smaller maps, it will be an entire team of submachine guns just because they're that much more powerful. Their response to me, which I believe I can talk about, is that they were mainly looking at the shared damage ranges of the two, kind of how ARs are supposed to be good at long range and not as good at close range, and SMGs are supposed to be good at close range and not so good at long range. From what they said to me, it seemed like they were looking in the middle ground to see what kind of benefit they could give either side to make those mid-range gunfights a little more 50-50 250 instead of AR dominated. We'll see what that looks like on these smaller maps, but I'm going to be very interested to see how exactly they tackle this in the season 1 update. I tried pulling out a striker on Rio, and I think it was FaZe Swag shouted out like, who's using a striker or something like that. So I was immediately persuaded to not use the striker just because I didn't want to piss a lot of people off. But I was trying to test out here if it actually felt a lot more powerful at the mid to long range. I didn't quite get there though. So look forward to more testing when the actual season 1 update drops. With how it sounds like they're tackling it, it should be a good change. And it's nice to see them acknowledge that SMGs do need a little bit of love. And speaking of the SMGs and ARs, the RAM-7 is the new AR, which I've been using for the entirety of this video pretty much. So y'all have gotten a good feel of how that looks. Seems pretty good. Fast fire rate, medium damage. I don't think this will overtake the MCW meta unless they make some major changes in the update. And then in season, they're adding an SMG called the HRM-9, which unfortunately was not on the patch that we used. I was looking to test it out, but I couldn't quite get there. So we will get hands-on mid-season for this gun. Update number 2 that I'm most excited about for season 1 is the maps and the spawns. We talked about this earlier. I'm super excited for the entry points of Greece and Rio to maybe sneak their way into competitive play. And we actually played the new gunfight map called Training Facility, which is so fun. I'll show y'all some clips on screen right here. I was absolutely doing work to some of the other streamers that showed up. I kind of feel like they might not invite the top 250 multiplayer rank anymore to some of these content events, but fingers crossed for more invites because that was a ton of fun. There are also these vortex maps that I'm not allowed to say too much about, but based on the thumbnails from the season 1 roadmap, you can see that it's kind of reskinned versions of Quarry, Scrapyard, and Rust. And this is going to bring me into point number 1 that I'm actually most excited about for the season 1 update. And point number 1 is the EMP and the Swarm. And I have a story for these about how I made some of your favorite Twitch streamers rage, but unfortunately I can't show it because it happened on the vortex maps. So lock in for some story time. I was using the RAM-7, absolutely going off on tetanus. The Swarm, mind you, was a 15 kill streak and the EMP was a 13. And this sounds like I'm lying, but I promise I'm not. You can ask Seek, you can ask Ocean, you can ask FaZe Scope, you can ask FaZe Dirty. This is real, okay? This happened. But I'm doing my thing with the RAM-7. I drop a 13. I call in the EMP, and from the sky, it was like giant blue mist that showed off the fact that you called in the EMP. And apparently when I was talking to the people that I played against, it removed the entire HUD as well as the green dots over your teammates and the red dots over your opponents, so you had no idea who was a friend and who was an enemy. If you can manage to drop something like this in hardcore and they don't fix it, it's going to be insane. And so with my opponent super discombobulated, I got the easy 2 kills for the Swarm. Unfortunately, the Swarm was not as powerful as I thought it would be. It maybe only got 3 kills and I was one of them just because I was chasing an opponent. And when we were playing on the maps, it almost looked like the Swarm got caught outside of the map. I saw a bunch of blue dots. So they'll most likely have that fixed by the time season 1 drops. And I think I might have been the only person to drop a Swarm at that event. So yes, I'm bragging. Maybe I'm full of myself, but I promise I'm not lying. This actually happened. I think one of the coolest things about these 2 streaks is that they're both throwbacks to older CODs, which is kind of what MW3 is standing for right now. And I am going to try to get a Swarm and search and destroy once it drops. I feel like that would be a super sick video. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you, Call of Duty. Thank you, Activision. Thank you, Sledgehammer, for the invite. I really hope to do something like this just because it was so much fun. And per usual, if you did like the video, be sure to drop a like, drop a subscribe, and I'll catch you next time at lunchtime.